Hey guys, how's it going? And welcome back to another 4-2-2 formation guide. We're going to be doing a video on this today, a post-patch update on this 4-2-2. This is one of my favorite formations in the game this year, so I wanted to do an update on this, an update on the instructions and tactics, and kind of let you know if I've tweaked and changed anything with the new patch. Obviously, the new patch has affected a few things about the game, so I do think it's a good idea to maybe take a look at some of these formations. So this 4-2-2 formation is definitely one of my favorite. It was my favorite way back when I started playing on the beta of the game. And then through the game, I've come to love it even more. There are a couple of little things here and there that maybe have tweaked slightly with this formation. But overall, I still think it is a very, very good formation. I want to start off straight away with the instructions. Now, I have my two strikers on stay central and get in behind. Now, we have mentioned before with the getting behind custom tactic that when you use long ball, you don't necessarily have to set the get in behind tactic on. Now, the other reason why I've had these guys on stay central is because it then allows them to link up really, really well. When you have them maybe on balanced, sometimes Inaki might drift left and Richarlison might drift right, and then it makes it very difficult for them to link up because they're going to be a lot farther apart. Whereas when you have them on stay central, they're obviously going to be a lot closer, and it's going to be a lot easier for them to do quick 1-2s. It's going to be a lot easier for you to play the tiki-taka around the box, which is very, very important. That's very, very good in this game, you know, the tiki-taka around the box. So it's definitely a positive to do that. So the getting behind tactic is on for those guys, and we'll get into the tactics and how they have changed a little bit later on. Now, the two wide cams, Son and Bale, I've gone for just pretty much basic, and then the only difference is free roam. Now, I actually did play a game. It was kind of by accident because for some reason my tactics didn't save, and I played with these guys on stick to position, and I just am free roam is just such a good tactic. I was just so bad without. When they're on stick to position, it was just so bad. It was just so difficult to play with this formation. Switched it immediately to free roam, and it was just so much better. It's just such a great tactic because it's so important that those guys drift around. Because if those guys are on their basic setting, they do not get involved in the play at all. They just kind of get stuck out there. They don't really get involved, and then it makes it really difficult to attack, especially given the way our CDMs and fullbacks are set up. These four up front are so pivotal into how you create and score chances. So these guys on free roam, they're just able to drift into lots of spaces, makes it very difficult for the opponent to pick them up because they're kind of in weird positions anyway, and naturally they're not marked by anyone. They don't get picked up by anyone, so they do drift into those odd spaces. But when they're on free roam, they're just drifting all over the place, and it just makes it very, very difficult for your opponent to defend. Now, next, the two CDMs, Sissoko and Alan, I've got on cut passing lanes, stay back while attacking, and cover center. Pretty much the standard for the CDMs. I did kind of flirt with using man mark because one of the issues that I was having in this formation was sometimes these guys weren't necessarily cutting enough of the passes out. Now, I wasn't actually using Sissoko and Alan. Now, changing to these two has made a massive difference, and I've definitely been noticing I've been intercepting more passes. But I did try man mark just because I think man marking players ahead of space is more important in this game. But it wasn't super effective. Did only try it out for 5 or 6 games. Didn't really notice a massive difference. Went back to cut passing lanes. And just a much better experience. Also, cut passing lanes, you've got to be able to do it yourself and kind of preempt it, not just rely on the AI to intercept the passes all the time for you. And then the two fullbacks. Now, the biggest change that I've probably made to this formation was the two fullbacks, which now we've got Jordi Alba and Nelson Semedo. I've got them on stay back while attacking. Now, I've been a big advocate for having fullbacks on balance. This is something that changes. I initially start with stay back while attacking, and then I will immediately pause the game, dependent on like the skill level of my opponent. If I kind of have played a few minutes of the game and I don't feel like my opponent is necessarily a great player, then I will switch my fullbacks to balance, because if I don't feel like they're very good, I may as well have just the extra players going forward. I don't need the extra bodies in defense. I'll have those extra 2 players in attack because I'll need to score goals. And if I don't feel like they're very good, I don't feel like they're going to score a lot of goals against me, I then maybe don't need the cover. But if the guy is a good player, then absolutely I need these guys on stay back while attacking, because anyone who is half decent in this game and has got any kind of pace in their team can really exploit the wings. And obviously crossing's really overpowered, and it's just very difficult to defend skill moves out on the wings. So stay back while attacking if my opponents are good, and then balanced attacking if my opponents are bad. Now, we've made some more changes and tweaks to the tactics. Now, defensive style, I've gone off of press after possession loss. Again, this is like the fullbacks. This changes dependent on my opponent. So when I pause, if I feel like my opponent is not very good, then I'll use the press after possession loss, as well as switching the fullbacks to balance. If I feel like my opponent is good, then I just stick to balance, because again, good players will be able to play around that press. If you're a good player, if you're a decent player, you know how to play out of press. So it's something that, again, if it depends on the skill level of my opponent, really, that's how that is dictated. Width wise, keep it standard on 5. One thing that I was finding sometimes, occasionally you do kind of exploit it, obviously, down the wings, because there's not a massive amount of cover. Obviously, we don't have like left and right midfielders can sort of, not necessarily, we don't have them on comeback on defense, as you see, but sometimes they can get in that lane and potentially cut the ball out, but they don't, we don't really have that in this formation. So 5 on the defensive style, 4 on the depth. I've gone for 4 on the depth. Now, the main difference, then the next 2 points I want to make are kind of the real key ones. The depth on 4 and the offensive style, I kind of flirt between long ball and balance. I don't have a set one that I use. Now, the reason why that was, long ball was, I'm a massive advocate of long ball. And again, I think this is super effective if you're playing against somebody who is not as good as you. If you're playing someone who you know is worse than you, then this is the way to go. But again, if I'm playing somebody who is good, then I switch to balance. Now, the one problem that I find with long ball is even those 2 DMs, which is maybe why I was having issues with my DMs before, Sissoko and Alan, when they're on long ball, as you can see, the whole team makes runs in behind. And that's why my DMs were sometimes getting out of position, because they were moving up the field. Maybe I was kind of attacking, and then my DMs would move up the field, and then these guys would make those runs beyond the striker. And then if I didn't pick them out, if maybe the opponent intercepted the ball or whatever it was, I now don't have my DMs. So I was finding that people were getting straight at my back 4, and my DMs were nowhere to be seen. So against really bad players and people who are not as good as you, it doesn't matter, because they're not as good to be able to exploit that space. But against good players, I will play balance. And against bad players, I'll play long ball with press after possession loss, maybe constant pressure, because constant pressure is really good in this game, and it does really gas out your players. So I do kind of have 2 tactics dependent on the skill level of my opponents. So there's kind of no real set number, but long ball is very good against not so good players, and if the players are good, then balance. And then everything else is pretty much standard. The other one is just corners and free kicks. I have on 1 because I don't like my opponents to potentially counter me. I want to have the players back. Although the weird thing with corners in this game, the players aren't really back, but they're not really in the box. They're kind of in this weird position where they're not all the way back in their normal positions, but they're not in the box either. So counterattacks can still occur even with your players and on 1 free kick and 1 corner. They counterattacks can still occur. But that's why we've gone for Walker and Semedo, and that's where personnel is really important as well. We've gone for Walker and Semedo on that right hand side, just because I find the way that I play FIFA as well, I tend to attack a lot more at the right hand side. I don't know why that is. It's just something that I notice when I play my games. I tend to attack more at the right, so I notice counter attacks happen more there. So it's good to have that speed there. But this 4-2-2 formation is still a really good formation, even after patch. The only thing that sometimes it lacks, which is why the free roam is so important, is that there's obviously quite a lot of space in that central area, like behind the strikers and just in front of the 2 DMs, Sissoko and Alan. There's quite a lot of space. But that's why the free roam tactic is so important, because sometimes Son or Bale will drift into that space, and then it makes it a little bit easier to link up with the 2 strikers. Sometimes it can be a little bit difficult every now and again against a really good player who's kind of really solid defensively. That's why it's important for that to happen. So that's maybe the only little nick on this formation, but other than that, it is a great formation. And one of the game plans that I use, you can see it's the defensive game plan. It's something that people ask me all the time. The game plans that I have set, these are the ones that I have set. I have the 4-2-3-1, 4-2-2-2, 4-4-1-1, 3-4-1-2. It doesn't matter which game plan it is set on. It's just the one that you select when you go into the game. So that is the 4-2-2-2. That is the tactics and instructions for the 4-2-2-2. So if you do want to see more formation guides on any of the formations, let me know in the comment section which are the ones you'd like us to cover, and we'll get around to doing it as quick as possible. Make sure you drop a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button if you do enjoy the content. But that is all for today, guys. Have an awesome day. I'm out.